So this is what we're going to do. I would ask you to open your browsers from your computers or from your cell phones and go to www.menti.com. Oh, people are already advanced. People are already voting. So the first statement coming from session 2. For session 2, we have 6 key messages. So you will see S2, 1/6. That would be the first key message. And there you go. People are voting. The first message is pollution has a disproportionate impact on grassroots communities that are left to suffer the brunt of the negative impacts. That statement is actually a paragraph, but Mentimeter has just 150 characters. Okay, I'm not sure, would probably be explained by the paragraph, no? So we have 25 votes, 26 votes. Go ahead before we move to the next key message. Are there only 33 people in the room? Still loading it up, okay. It says that 38 people have already voted. We have 45, 47. Can we go now to the next key message? It's still going up. Okay, come on. Come on, let's have 2 minutes more for key message 1 on session 2. Good to go? Let's go to the second question. Rita, can you click the slide, please? You need to go again to the website and key in or there should be an option of go to the slide. Okay, good. Just refresh. We currently have 33 votes, 52. Great, guys, keep your votes coming. This is a poll. One more minute. Don't worry, your votes will still be counted because it will still be registered in the system, even if the slides changed, right? Wow, this is an active group. 80 people voting. Good to go? Let's go to the next key message. 3/6. System change based on development justice and human rights is critical in addressing the root causes of pollution. Come on. Come on with the votes. We're stuck at 12. Oh, there we go. 44. We're good to go? Not yet. Not yet. We're at 76 or 78. Okay, let's go to the next key message then. Key Key message number 4 is consumer lifestyles are perpetuating pollution, but these are also promoted by corporate advertising and an awareness campaign is needed.
I'm not sure.
I think that's I'm not sure. The green bar is I'm not sure. Come on, guys. 600 people registered for GMGSF. I was expecting 600 votes. Oh, we have fallouts, no? We have 80 votes for the last key message, and we only have 78 now. 81. Okay, there you go.
Okay, we're good.
Let's go to key message number 5. False solutions aggravate that crisis rather than address it.
That's good. Give an example of a false solution.
I can't, because this is the key message, and maybe I'm not sure would be the best answer for this one.
Maybe later can explain.
Maybe later we can explain the false solutions in the democracy where the statement is more elaborate, no? False news, hashtag false news.
Okay, so we will need to fix the statement, no?
We would need to fix the statement. Oh, by the way, the key messages came actually from the moderators and the documenters yesterday. So it's not on me, no? Yes, we have 81 votes. I think we can move on to the last key message of session 2. Member states with New York and Nairobi processes of the UN must reinforce each other to make the Agenda 2030 work towards the realization of a pollution-free planet. Send in your votes, guys. Don't worry for those who are voting for no or I am not sure. There will be spaces later for clarification in the democracy. You can actually input your recommendations, what's actually wrong in the statement or what can be fixed in the statement, right? So the exercise this morning is just to get a sense of how the room actually feels from what transpired from the sessions yesterday. Okay, we have 85 votes. Can we now move on to session 5, the key messages of session 5? Session 5 key message number 1 is pollution of land and soils is adversely affecting not only the environment but also people's health and livelihoods. I think this is a good pilot. What do you guys think? Okay, we have 85 votes. Rina, can we go to the second key message, please? Session 5, second key message is chemical pesticides, secure land tenures and access to land are serious issues that need to be dealt with in land and soil pollution.
Okay. Yes.
Yes?
Yeah. Sorry, I find these questions not very interesting because it can't be yes throughout. There must be a challenge the questions you are asking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes doesn't make sense.
This would be, the exercise is just to get the sense. The debates would be coming in after the what do you call this? The democracy, the session on democracy. Right?
It's obvious, you see, they are all obvious questions.
Would be stupid to say no.
Go ahead. That's the idea.
Yeah, no. Exactly. Just also, I just want to observe that there are three separate things in this. I mean, some of the questions are combining different challenges, so it's very hard to get a clear answer. Anyway.
That's true. The key messages are actually not yet final. Yes, go ahead.
I think what we're just seeking to do at this point is get a guide that the key messages are heading in the right direction. And we're doing it just with a means that is swift.
Yes.
It doesn't get us into any debating. That's why it's yes.
Exactly, because we're getting a consensus before the drafters actually go into the drafting mode to build the outcome document of the GMGSF. Right? Yes? Yes?
Just wondering whether that's supposed to be confirming that those were the key messages that came out of yesterday's deliberations, then the tool is right. But if this is supposed to mean that we are looking at it and agreeing and not disagreeing, then statistically it will be wrong.
Correct. We're not assuming that if there is a no vote there, that it doesn't go into the outcome document, right? We're also saying that if the yes is overwhelming for one key message, then it goes into because this needs to marry the democracy exercise. Again, the key messages, the democracy exercise would ultimately be would complement this one because that would be positions of the major groups, right? So this is individual, this is just getting a sense how do we proceed with the consensus and building the narrative, the outcome document for this meeting.
So probably what I meant is if this is something that will go to the document, then statistically it's right. But in a situation where we are building a consensus, then there must be a way we could be able to point out keenly that this is no. But in a situation that we are going through, it's simply telling us all through it's a yes. So we can actually predictively go ahead and say yes.
If you look at the program, session 12 should actually marry this exercise this morning. Well, if you don't find value in this one, then we can just stop and we can just proceed with the yes, Deb?
No, just to make it clear, and we repeated it, I think 3 times yesterday, that there are 2 tools that we're using to build consensus. And this Mentimeter is actually just to get sentiments of each individual in this room. Just for you to air your views on the key messages that came out from the sessions. This is what we're doing now. And the democracy exercise in session 12 is going to be the platform where we're going to discuss what will end up in the collective statement, and the votes there will not be individual. Not the votes. The affirmation there will be per major group. That's why we broke out into huddles of major groups yesterday, not just to say hello to each one, but to get to know the views and statements and positions that the major group has adopted earlier or will adopt in this UNEA 3, depending on the preparations done by each of the major groups. So the questions that were raised, the points that were raised were all valid, and that those were all taken into account. And as Gomer kept on repeating, we will have a discussion on the no, the explanation of the no. We will have that discussion in the afternoon during session 12, including the I'm not sure, because like just sitting here, like we've been getting questions, what is development justice? What was the other point earlier on like lumping some messages in one sentence? And these kinds of feedback will be useful in refining the presentation of the key messages for the democracy exercise later. So those will be taken on board, those will be used to improve the formulation of the questions, of the key messages this afternoon when we go into session 12 for the democracy. Yes, all those views, the counter views on the I'm not sure, no, we know that those are the things that will actually provide much more nuance to our collective statements and that are based on the key messages coming out from the sessions.
Okay. Can we have this last comment and then we can proceed?
Yep. I think it's a good exercise, but from the Labour point of view, we are concerned about if they will be assumed as key messages from the major groups, because messages from the Labour movement are not reflected in these key messages. I hope in the sessions in the afternoon, we'll have a chance to present our key messages.
What we're presenting are key messages from the sessions yesterday. So that means that the sessions yesterday, together with the interaction after the sessions, probably may not have involved the labor groups then, if they are not reflected here. But we will consider, and we will, and probably the votes of no and I'm not sure, probably can clarify that in session 12, Abu. Oh, yeah, right?
Just to add, I forgot, also to remind ourselves that this is a pilot exercise. We never did this in Asia Pacific. We've had tons of exercises on democracy and we know how useful it could be, but we want to use this to get individual sentiments. Because later, we anticipate that people will say, oh, I don't agree with my major group, yeah, I was not there, blah, blah. So we're giving this space for the individual sentiments to be aired. But this is not the basis that we will use for the collective statement. It's more of the democracy and the discussion, the substantive discussion we're going to have this afternoon. Ideally, if we had time, or if we manage to master this tool earlier on, this should have gone together with a focus group discussion. No, when we have to focus on the red ones, especially, and including the green ones, but we don't have the time, so we will use the democracy to get the major group sentiments and affirmation of messages that will go into the collective statement. So again, look at this as a pilot exercise for you to vent out your individual views, because you may not even count individually later in the discussion, because only the major groups as a group will be airing their views on the key messages that will end up in the final statement.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you for your clarificatory questions. And the key messages here are just limited to 150 characters on Mentimeter. It would be expanded to full paragraphs for clarity, maybe in session 12. Should we proceed now? Yes, let's go to key message 4 of session 5, Rina.
No, this is okay. Finish?
Guys, come on, there are only 51 votes here. We're 80, we're regretting. Oh, sorry. Okay, session 5, the fourth key message is states must prevent and stop killings of enforced disappearances of land and environmental defenders. Should we move on? Okay. Next slide, please, Rina.
Okay. Move on.
No, the voting will still be captured by the system, even if we moved on to a different slide. I should be voting myself also, no? So session 5, key message number 4 is communities and CSOs play a huge role in restoration of land and soil and need support from the member states. Let's go to the 5th key message. Dealing with fossil fuel is as important as dealing pollution of land and soil as they are in struggle against climate change. Keep your votes coming. Last minute. Let's move. Session 5, key message 6 is ban and phase out the highly hazardous pesticides, advance agroecology and natural farming supported by science. Okay, we'll move on to session 6. Session 6 would be on marine pollution. The first key message is halt entry of plastic litter into water and marine environments, halt production and use of plastics, single-use plastics committed to at UNEA 3. Sorry, the message there should be ban single-use plastics committed to at UNEA 3. The next one. Key message number 2 for session 6 is tax oil and plastic production in all countries and pay into a global fund, after the example of Norway, to clean up plastic waste. Come on, guys, vote. Rina, let's move to the next key message. 3 out of 7, stop using incineration, open burning, and landfilling as methods of dealing with plastic waste.
Excuse me?
Yes?
We could do better on that question. It's only, incinerators is not only plastic, there are quite a number of other things which are there. So please modify that question if you want us to use it effectively.
Sure. Thank you. Can you take a photo of this one? Key message 4. Yes?
I have the feeling that these are not related to marine pollution, but to plastic pollution. Is it possible that the key messages have been mixed up?
No. This is, the key messages came from the documenters and the moderators.
But why did we prepare key messages yesterday as well in the breakout groups? Shouldn't they flow into this as well?
No.
They're completely different from the one we did.
We'll take note of that. We also get the key messages from the breakout groups yesterday and input it into the democracy exercise later.
Yeah, it's just that many of these are they're all excellent, but they're very plastics related. They don't reflect marine in any way, really, which is just odd. Like the incineration thing doesn't have anything to do with marine. Yet it's in session 6, yeah.
I just have 2 points I would raise. One is that in every panel, not every major group was speaking, and not every point that was made by every speaker is reflected in the outcomes of the moderators. So there are some things that were said that we're not seeing, so we can't vote on them, we can't express a position on them. And then the second point is, as was said a little earlier, I think the major group views are not reflected in here. So I think this is not really giving us a full sense of, you know, what the positions are of different actors who are sitting in this room. I mean, it may reflect some individuals, but we're not only here as individuals, we're here representing rather large constituencies.
That's true. We will take note of it. Can Rina clarify?
Sorry. Noreen, we take note of it, but we actually, as explained by Ned, this is actually coming from the key message of the session yesterday from the facilitator and documenter. This is what we got from them, but we will have a major group position when we do the session 12 on democracy. So that's going to be when the major groups going to have their position in relation with the key message that we're going to have. Yeah.
Sarah, you were raising your hand a while ago?
I think I was basically what Rina mentioned, that there will be a possibility, because we will have the major groups responding to the key messages later on. This is more to get a feeling of individuals and how they're feeling about these key messages.
Thank you. Yes, let's go to the next key message. This is third to the last. Support local actions to deal and visualize the marine litter pollution, how it enters into the food chains, and how plastics contain hazards. Okay, second to the last slide. Polluters must be made accountable by binding legislation, phasing out all unnecessary uses of plastics. Can we move on?
Excuse me.
Yes?
Are you only focusing on plastic waste? What about wastewater and all that? Other pollutants? All these are plastic related.
But it's the other session on water. It's coming this morning, the session on water.
Session 6 was marine pollution. And the last one is all member states should join the Break Free from Plastics campaign. Register your thoughts on this, guys. And that's it. If you want to see to receive the results of the Mentimeter, just key in your email addresses. It will be automatically sent to your emails. Okay, thank you for the great participation of the Mentimeter exercise. I'll move it back to Rina.
So thank you, Gomer. As explained by us just now, that we're going to have more discussion about the key messages later on session 12. So don't worry. We take notes all the comments and also suggestions. If you have some comments or suggestions in relation with key message, please approach me and also Saro there. We're going to actually try to draft the key messages, and then it will be ready by before the session 12. So all the major group will be able to see it. Yeah. So okay. So we are going to go on.
Can you let them know that this is still open?
Yeah. And then just to let you know that the Mentimeter is still open, so you can actually still vote until maybe after before lunchtime, yeah? So, okay, now we're going to move on to the next session. We're already like late. So, Susanna, I'm going to give it to Susanna. And so I'm going to ask Susanna to call the speakers in front for our another TV talk show. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Now, this is working. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing this morning? Fine? Okay, let's get started our session. And I'm going to ask Dr. Abutia, Banamalika Chaudhry, Agnes Mirambe, and Elizabeth Bernard to join us on the stage. We're going to start this session while the panelists accommodate here. We're going to start this session with a video. You know that wastewater treatment is a key process to guarantee the quality of water and therefore people's health and conservation of the environment. This is more important in Mediterranean countries where water resources are limited. So we're going to show you a video about the tremendous efforts of the government of Catalonia that in 25 years has succeeded to comply EU water regulations and nowadays treating 97% of population to wastewater. Video in, please. Okay, so maybe we can take advantage of this little time, and I would like to introduce the distinguished panelists that we have here this morning. Dr. Abutiam is professor of botany and plant ecology at the Institute of Environmental Science in Cheikh Anta Diop in Dakar. He is also the regional coordinator of the Pesticide Action Network Africa. For more than 20 years, he has carried out several research and training activities on wetlands, aquatic vegetation, and in the field of health and environment problems posed by pesticides. And he's author of several studies, reports, articles, and books on the issue. Agnes Mirembe is the team leader at Action for Rural Women Empowerment. This is an indigenous organization in Uganda. She has wide experience working with vulnerable communities and developing and implementing community development interventions. She has passion for improving livelihoods of disadvantaged people in Uganda and at the world at large. We have also Bana here joining us. Bana is a women's rights activist and social entrepreneur in Assam, Northeast India. She works for rural and indigenous women's rights to land and natural resources and also on climate change. She runs a small cafe and a store, practicing a feminist business model based on just and equitable ownership and sharing. And also we have with us this morning Elizabeth Bernard. Liz is the program officer in the Freshwater Unit Ecosystems Division at UN Environment. She is the Secretariat Resource Person coordinating UN Environment's technical input to the member state proponents' water resolutions for UNEA 3. Liz has a 15 years experience at the Environment Policy Development Interface. Prior to joining UN Environment, she was UN's Water Program Officer in New York during the setting up of the Agenda 2030 and responsible for consolidating UN technical input to the SDG 6. Thank you for all of us. Thank you for joining us today. Is the video ready? Okay, video in, please. There should be some subtitles that they're not now on. the video's not working well, so let's stop it here. The link to this video will be at the website, I believe. All videos are going to be posted there. So, just to briefly introduce on the session today, I would like to say that pollution remains a huge challenge that threatens to intensify as a result of rising consumption and living standards and population growth. Freshwater's bodies on which billions of people depend for water, food, and transport are heavily affected by nutrient runoff from agriculture, chemicals and pathogens in an untreated wastewater, heavy metals from mining and industrial effluents. Pollution can have serious impacts on fish and biodiversity, and polluted freshwater can go on to contaminate land and soil and coastal waters. The lack of access to clean water and sanitation is the major cause of child mortality. It hosts diseases, vectors such as cholera and parasite worms. So, I mean, huge impacts on freshwater pollution, and that's why we're here, and we're going to discuss on how to overcome this. So I would like to start with the first row of questions to Abu, to Bana, and to Agnes, and then I will ask Liz to join us into the discussion. So what are the key issues under the freshwater pollution that UNEA should be focusing on?
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly, I have some slides that will be actually bringing out some of the issues that we should be focusing on. But one of the issues that we think we should focus on is failure to, for example, in Uganda where I'm coming from, and especially in areas hard to reach and where the communities are most affected, the first issue that I think we should focus on is failure to acknowledge the extent of the problem. Now, most of the communities that we are working with do not understand so much the extent of freshwater pollution. It is true and very evident, the slides are not coming in. Yes, it's very true and very evident that so many communities are sharing the water with animals, which is very evident that there is so much waste that is going on. It's very evident that there is disposal of waste from every sort of, area, like for example, industries, the fecal that is not handled well, the drainage that has been cleared, most of the untreated waste is disposed there, but the communities do not understand that the water that they are consuming is so intoxicated and it is affecting their health. And so the ignorance levels has to be worked on. It also brings in the issue of the quality of water that is consumed. Like I'm saying, most of the communities do not understand that the health-related issues that affecting their livelihood is due to the quality of water they are taking. It is a challenge in some of the governments, especially in Uganda. It's becoming very difficult to treat the water because of the high levels of contamination. And so it means that the most affected, especially the women and children, will consume the water sometimes without very good purification methods. It's very, very evident in Uganda that the most method of treating and purifying water is boiling. It means there's going to be high levels of deforestation, and if trees are cut, especially in catchment areas, it is going to increase on the spill of the waste in the water. Yet I also mentioned that human practices, like for example, lack of sanitation facilities. For example, in the fishing areas where we work, most of the fishermen do not have toilet facilities. And so it's very evident that there's open defecation. And so all that fecal matter is spilled off in water, and the people who take the water are not treating the water. They do not know that it has to be purified. So the gap in knowledge is it's a very, very key issue that I think we should address here at UNEA.
Thank you, Bana. Thank you, Agnes. Bana, please, your key issues.
I think we know and we have been talking about the key issues. They are pesticides, extractive industries. We know what are the, issues that also applies to freshwater pollution. So I come from I also had slides if I, and I'm just going to again use another example. And, I come from a place, it's called, it's northeast of India, which is very different from mainland India, and it's one of the biodiversity hotspots. So I have that, it's a land of the indigenous, a lot of indigenous people there. And it has 51 forest types. These are pristine forests, and then 50% forest coverage. It is very water rich. So it has 5% of the national land in terms of, India's size, and this region is only 5% of land, but 30% of water resources of India is there in this region. And so we also see these data like the per capita water availability, which is in India, the national figure is at 2,208 cubic meters, whereas in this region it's 16,589. So we have a lot of rivers. And there are two major, can we go to the next slide please? Two major river basins, Brahmaputra, which is a big river which starts from Tibet and then flows through Assam and goes into Bangladesh. It covers an area of 6,30,000 is how we say that in India. That many square kilometer of basin, that's a really big area, and it's a very, very big river. It's almost like the ocean, often you don't get to see the other side. And then we have Barak, which is also a pretty big river, and it covers Myanmar, Bangladesh, India. And what's happening is that, and maybe we can go. So, and pristine rivers, very beautiful place, lot of forests. This is, how clear our rivers are usually. You can see that, you can see the bottom of the river. But all of this is under serious threat. What is happening is, this is the level of coal mining that is going on in that area. And these are unregulated, illegal coal mining. There are no regulations of labor standards. There are no regulations of environmental protection. So, and what that is leading to is, the next slide please, is you can see this river. This has turned blue like this, and there is no longer fish or marine plants that can live in this river. I'm just using two examples. There are more. And the next one, please. Yeah, this is another one where you can see the river has changed colors, and the communities no longer get the rivers are source of, obviously, their agriculture production, and then their source of fish, their source of drinking water, all of that. So these rivers are getting polluted, and they no longer have access to water, although we come from this very rich, water resource area. And no, I'll come to that later. Yeah. So, and this is happening from extractive, from mining. So I think this is a key issue, because this area where I come from it's not an urbanized area. That's what I wanted to, because when I look into the resolutions, when I look into the discussions that is happening, it's almost, people want to put it as if like water pollution is happening on its own, and because of local issues, that people are doing it. But what I wanted to point out, that if we look into this area, which is otherwise pristine and indigenous, and there is no urbanization, but water pollution is happening here. And also the danger is that these are, I'm talking about river basins, so they are all connected. Each of these big rivers have hundreds of tributaries and distributaries. So if one river gets polluted, that means that it will affect the entire basin. So, I wanted to bring out this issue in particular.
Thank you, Bana. So Dr. Abu Tia, please, your key issues.
Okay, I would like to start by one slide. Okay. I would like to remind that we have 97% of water in our planet is only ocean. 2 2% are blocked in ice. We are only 1% usable and consumable. In this 1%, 97 are in the deep situation. So this is the one we have to remind. We are very, very few quantity of water in our disposal to use. Another figure I would like to mention is 70% of untreated industrial waste is dumped into the water. And about 2 billion tons of human waste are disposed every day in the world's rivers. We are fortunate water is recyclable, but we have a lot of difficulties in the recycling of water for domestic or industrial. Now, for the key issues, second slide, please. I think one problem is in our countries, I would say, mainly for Africa, is very, very difficult to assess the extent of the problems of pollution of fresh water in the country by type of pollution, but also in different regions in the countries. I think this is a very essential for politicians in the country to state, to identify type of pollution, the extent of the all pollutions. One other issue I would like to raise is the difficulties for macro pollutants like pesticide, heavy metals. Invisible pollution, I think it's a great problem, and we do not have capacity to identify this, and it is a problems. We also see in many rivers in Africa, there is a process of eutrophisation, and one consequence of that is the development of some invasive aquatic plants we see. Many rivers like Niger River has a big problem with some plant like water hyacinth, who has consequences in communities, in use of water, etc. One other point I would like to raise is the mining, which is very developed in many West African countries right now. We started. And this mining has particular consequence on aquatic ecosystems, I would say, and communities living around this site of exploitation. Also, another issue very important for me, it's the extraction and the transport of oil that pose serious pollution problem in many countries. So we need an establishment of criteria for the continental water of Africa, I would say, because many times we are using data criteria from Europe for US to qualify our water. The system is very different. I think there is a need to develop our own criteria based on our realities, our situation, our standards. I think also the appropriate solution to solve the problem of freshwater pollution, sanitation especially, must receive a greater attention for our politicians, of our states, because many times state is fight to have water for people, but not the sanitation aspect are, taking account. I think this is a big problem we need to solve in different countries. So I think the research on alternatives to chemical pesticide, mercury, plumb, heavy metal have to be strengthened, and I completely agree with what my colleague said yesterday, Sarah, about the pollution due to this problem, with different products. I would submit for that.
Thank you for that, Abu. So if I got right, one key issue would be like to really the communities acknowledge the effects of drinking polluted water. So and what are the effects that this is having in their health? Also, the need to have a better control of any kind of activities, agriculture, industry activities, to have an integrated approach, and also the need on monitoring the quality of water. At this stage, I would like to open the floor to the audience. If you have any other key issues that we haven't identified so far. Do you have any other key issues that you would like to see UNEA focusing on? No? No, yes, please.
Thank you, the moderator and the group who has presented. But of course, as we talk about water bodies, pollution of fresh water, we should not forget effects of climate change. Climate change has become a global concern, and we must address it because of recent, I've forgotten the statistics, but if you measured Lake Victoria, water levels have gone down. And it's all due to what? To impacts of climate change. That means that in future we won't be having water both for human health and even our animals. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution. It's well noted. Yes, please, at the back.
My name is Fiesta Waringwa. I'm from the African Wildlife Foundation. I would also like to echo my concern about Lake Victoria. I think as of yesterday, we already got the information that the scientists in Uganda are very concerned that Lake Victoria is slowly dying. And it's not just because of the fecal matters that get washed into the lake or the garbage, but there is a big concern about the use of fertilizers around some of the agricultural enterprises, and more specifically the flower farms. For example, in 2005, fishermen were able to catch up to about 36,000 tons of fish. But as of last year, only 17,000 is what the fishermen were able to get. So, and there's a lot of algae production within the lake, which is slowly affecting the oxygen levels in the lake. And therefore, my request is that Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, plus all the Nile riparian countries, should really take an action, and the action must be very quick. Otherwise, once the lake is dead, I think most of us will not be surviving again. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Here, please.
Good morning. I'm Fanny Cosico from the Philippines and representing Advocates of Science and Technology for the People. I'd like to address my question to Ma'am from the UN Environment. What would be the strong action being undertaken by the UN with regard to the issue of pollution coming from mining and energy projects? Because in the Philippines we have a very prevalent problem. We've been conducting environmental investigation missions where we found out that there's a lot of pollution with all the freshwater bodies, and the effects are irreversible. So we want to know what is the action being undertaken by UN with regard to this problem.
Liz, please.
Is this on? Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz, as Susanna has mentioned. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for all the energy in this room and all the great contributions by the panelists. Seeing this kind of energy isn't always that common in UN meetings, so I do appreciate seeing it here. I think that it might be useful if I start off on behalf of the proponent countries with a little bit of an overview of the resolutions so far. To give you a sense of what's currently in the water resolutions, because it does talk about what we call accidental pollution, and what is meant by that is pollution from mining and extractives. So let me just give you, if it's okay, a very quick overview. First of all, the good news is that there's a lot of interest around water at UNEA, but that has resulted in 4 different resolutions on water currently being on the table, and there's very hard work underway at the moment to merge those. But let me tell you a little bit about each of the resolutions and what they entail and what they mean. And I assume you all have access to the platform to see the resolutions here. Okay. So the first one was submitted by the United States. It is called Enhancing the Work of the United Nations Environment Program to promote the development and strengthening of water quality monitoring programs and to encourage data sharing. And as its name implies, this resolution really focuses on water quality monitoring, on gathering data, on providing and enhancing public access to that data, and also encouraging collaboration to share information and to increase water quality monitoring. This resolution is extremely short, and it was really meant to invite other countries to contribute to it. The second resolution that is currently being considered was submitted by Colombia and Costa Rica. This one is called Clean Water for All, Leaving No One Behind. This one takes quite a bit of a human rights approach on access to water and sanitation. It is also one of the only UNEA resolutions so far that really makes the linkages very strongly between land-based pollution, freshwater pollution, and marine pollution, which makes it quite unique. The resolution also has a strong focus on education, on capacity building, and on impacts on human health. So I think that addresses also some of the comments that Uganda has made, both on access to information, getting to know the extent of the problem, as well as the human health impacts. The third resolution is from the entire African group, and it's called Accelerating Efforts to Address Water Pollution and to Protect and Restore Water-Related Ecosystems. This one takes very much an ecosystems-based approach. It focuses on lakes, rivers, and groundwater as a source of water and also a recipient of pollution, and places at the center of the resolution their protection and restoration. It also encourages countries to set national standards for water quality based on work that UN Environment is doing to help countries understand how to protect and restore ecosystems. Now, these countries, over the past 3 months, have been actively engaged in merging these resolutions, and they've spent nearly 30 hours doing so. So there's been a really intensive effort to bring all of this together into one resolution. I'm happy to say that that was submitted as well onto UNEA, the platform, in mid-November, on November 14th. And I think that this text, this new text, which is called Addressing Water Pollution to Protect and Restore Water-Related Ecosystems, really brings together the strongest parts of all of these resolutions. And it has all of the countries' proponents, equal proponents, without one taking the lead on this new resolution. That one was submitted. When it was discussed in plenary with the CPR, there were a number of additions, deletions, some red flags, and reservations. So that text is currently still being negotiated, and we expect to see a lot of activity around that text, around that merged text this week. That's the current status of the resolutions.
Thank you, Liz, for the update and giving us an overview on the negotiations. You just mentioned there's some red flags around. Can you further explain what are the bottlenecks on the negotiations?
Sure. Thanks, Susanna, for that very excellent question. In fact, there are a number of issues that are very sensitive for some countries. One of them is, in fact, the way that climate change is mentioned. We know that climate change has a huge impact on water resources, but instead of speaking about climate change, many countries prefer to talk about water-related disasters and extreme events like drought and flooding. So the climate change language probably won't make its way into this text, as I currently understand it. For some countries, human rights language is a bit controversial, surprisingly. But the reasoning is that when the General Assembly declared access to water and sanitation to be a human right several years ago, there were a number of reservations by countries in the General Assembly, so it was not a negotiated text in the sense that a UNEA resolution is. So some countries kind of saw that including human rights language as a backdoor to, having stronger wording on human rights than they might have agreed to. So that one is also, for some countries, a little bit of a red flag. Transboundary issues are very much a red flag for many countries, and any mention of transboundary issues, which has been brought in now to the latest text, will probably shut all the negotiations down. So that is a huge red flag, as well as the issue of data sharing in general. So making all data public on water pollution and water quantity is a bit sensitive to some countries. So those are some of the biggest red flags that I think countries will need to keep negotiating about this week.
Thank you for the hints on the issues we should be lobbying. I would like to go back to our panelists and ask you, how do you think that communities and civil society organizations in your respective countries are addressing this fresh water pollution?
Okay, first, the example that I can give is to do with ensuring that communities are sensitized and get the knowledge on especially the best practices they can do. For example, in agriculture, because we want the communities to understand that it's supposed to be tackled in an integrated way. So in agriculture, for example, we are promoting organic farming such that pesticides and fertilizers are manufactured and, reduced on, to make sure that the ecosystem is protected. But also issues of ensuring that proper sanitation is put into consideration. The fecal matter is it's a very bad waste into the water, especially water that is for consumption. So we are training communities to make sure that they can put up sanitation facilities like EcoSan, and also to reuse the waste and make sure that probably they can use biogas. Waste can be recycled to be used as a product of energy, as a source of energy. And so there is so much capacity building around that. But, civil societies are also participating in gathering data, because data is also a problem. And so we are doing lots of research and to ensure that, we submit some information that our governments can lean on, can work with to ensure that approaches are really better strategies are put in place. But also the other thing that is being done is engaging the gender perspective. Most, like I said, the women and children are really affected negatively. And so we are trying to empower the woman, to bring the woman on board such that they can understand some of these issues and they can participate. And also because the policies that are put in place in our governments and the laws, most of the women are not engaged. And so we just want them to understand. Yeah, please it close. Thank you very much. To understand how best they can protect and restore the ecological, system. So the issue of gender is something that the civil societies are trying to put on forefront.
First of all, I would like to mention one point that I find it surprising that what is the pollution that is being caused by extractive mining or industries is being called accidental. This cannot be an accident. This is not an accident. So having said that, so what I see communities can do, the only thing communities can do is to come together, take collective action, become movements. And so where I come from, actually the coal mining from the communities managed to get a ban on these coal mines from 2014. They filed a case at the National Green Tribunal in India, and there has been a ban. Although there is also a lot of effort now going on to remove that ban. But communities said that we're not letting this happen in our, in our place anymore. So downstream communities in particular, they had come together as a movement and, filed a case, and we have managed to get that. So that's, as for from places where I come from, where I'm not dependent on the state to provide me with water because I have enough water. What I want the state to do is to stop polluting. Have regulations which is going to stop polluting, have regulations on these industries, on these so-called development activities. I also want to mention hydropower projects, which is also a problem in my area, which are also, playing with the river. There is a lot of disruption in the actual river flow, and, that's also pollution. Although in scientific terms, at these kind of, platforms, you will monitor water quality, and you will, only if it is above 10, then it is polluted. If it is 9.5, it is not polluted. That doesn't work for communities who live on the river. Yeah. So, and I also want to share we at PWLD, what we have been doing is this thing called Feminist Participatory Action Research. So, groups, very ground, women's groups from, at the very grassroots communities in different parts of the Asia-Pacific region are. This is a collective participatory research which communities document their own stories. So they have been documenting these cases and then, advocating for changes that they think what the changes should be. So this is what I feel that communities can do. The only thing that can then change, the only way we can, bring in change is by building movements.
Okay, for me, I will have some example from West Africa, especially in Mali and Senegal and Burkina Faso, where there is gold mining areas. I think it's really a start of the organization of people. Civil society are not very, very present on this issue of pollution of water. But it's a beginning. I think there is a need to organize people, to organize communities about this issue of pollution of fresh water. So the organizations which are there are just trying to awareness, to have programs on awareness raising, some activities on training, and to train communities to request the right to safe water. That has some items developed by organizations working around this issue. So I should say there is really a need to reinforce the presence of civil society organization in these hot points, I would say, for freshwater protection.
Thank you. Please, would you like to react on what is being said now?
Yeah, I think the contributions are fantastic. I very much note that there seems to be a lack of addressing extractives and mining at the moment, and that's something that when we have the opportunity, we can try to suggest that might fit into this resolution. I note very much, and I think it's incredibly important to achieve all of these goals that we need a stronger focus on capacity building, on local engagement, on access to data and access to financing as well for innovative solutions. Those elements, as well as awareness raising and education, those elements are listed right now in the resolution, which I'm happy to see. One thing that I haven't yet mentioned is the concept of integrated water resources management. IWRM is a concept that brings together local stakeholders, including women's groups, farmers, industry, so basically all of the users and the polluters of water. Putting in place IWRM plans is a major part of UN Environment's mandate to help countries do so. So we are very active in that area as well. Yes. Somebody had also asked what the UN is doing. Very briefly, UN Environment is doing a lot on water already, and we bring together colleagues from all across our organizations to do so. UN Environment manages a global partnership on nutrient management. I see my colleague there in the back. We have also a global wastewater initiative. We help protect and restore freshwater ecosystems. We help countries set standards, water quality standards. We do water quality monitoring and capacity building for that monitoring through what we call GEMS water. So we are doing quite a lot across our organization, and we're working ever harder to coordinate our own efforts to help countries to reach these goals.
Thank you. I would like to open the floor again. Would you like to share any experiences or anything that you are doing in your countries in addressing water pollution? Okay, please, sir.
Yeah, okay. My name is Norbert Sangura. I come from Kenya. First, my concern has been on the Lake Victoria again. Actually, almost 70% of Lake Victoria water comes from Kenya. Uganda is the biggest user and beneficiary of the Lake Victoria water. And to me, it has contributed heavily towards the reduction of the water by opening, expanding the Nile exit. It has also benefited from generating electricity from the water. Unfortunately, they have not done anything much to renegotiate the Nile Treaty that was imposed to the Nile state countries in around 1920. I appeal that if that treaty can be negotiated so that other actors can be properly involved, because that was between the British and British government, the colonies in Egypt and here in Kenya and Tanzania. So I request that UNEP can assist to renegotiate the treaty that was signed many years back. We have also cases which we are also avoiding is some of the water pollutions are starting in our own homes. And the cause of the pollution is erosion. If we can embrace roof water harvest and control the flow from right in the homes, so that very little goes, the small bottles that will be carrying some toxic to the waters could be controlled. It could do some value and avail water in the communities. I actually do not need treated water to wash a car or mop my house. What I need is just clean water. We could embrace seriously on roof water harvest. And lastly, have a strong policy that controls cities from polluting the rivers from down. Because unfortunately, most of the wild cities are either near the lakes or along the rivers. They collect water from the upper side of the river, which is safe for their use, then pollute it without considering even recycling, and empty their waste in the same river, the lower side, for the other people to consume. So to me, I appeal that UNEP, through this conference, we should actually fix and enforce policies to governments and city managers that one, they embrace water recycling for use, particularly in the industrial production, and then other general water works that are available. Thank you.
Thank you for raising this, especially the need on coordination, coherence, and cooperation between all levels of governments. And this is, sorry for this, but this is one of the key messages that local authorities major group is trying to push for. There was another question here, and another over there. So, and a few on the back, but let's begin with this one.
Mine is just a comment, not a question. I'm Yahya from the trade union movement. Our group went through the resolutions, and we are concerned. We have our own red flag in one resolution, which is talking about accidental pollution. We know most of them is not accidental, it is intentional. And we think this language will not see its way to the final document, because it will affect many communities that are claiming for compensation from deliberate pollution of their waters.
Thank you. Over there, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that when we are talking about water quality and climate change, I think it is important to link these issues with chemical contamination. For example, when we are talking about extreme weather events such as flooding, and especially if flooding is happening in agricultural areas with extensive pesticide use. What we witnessed, for example, in Texas or in Quebec, Canada this year when there were extreme floods, and unfortunately the second-hand pesticides contamination has not been considered well enough. Though we witnessed dirty water in people's houses and in people's backyards, so I'm pretty sure that this has to be considered as either in this declaration or, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Please, over here. Very concrete, please, questions or comments.
Thank you. Penny Natwine from Uganda. Mine is on improving people's life, poverty reduction. We need to reduce on standards of living for the people, because most of the people, for example, in Uganda, have encroached wetlands because they are cheap, they don't have where to stay, so they find it easy settling in such places. So if the standards of living are improved, they won't be bothered entering such places, and they will reduce on the activities being carried out in wetlands, and even dumping of wastes in alongside roadsides and drainage channels, and that will reduce on the quality of, improve on the quality of water. Thank you.
Isis.
Yes. No, I just wanted to say that I'm a bit puzzled about this clean water for all resolution, especially because one of the proponents is Colombia. And the current policy of Colombia couldn't be more against the environment. They are opening, you know, they talk about a peace process, but the peace process has meant absolute devastation for the environment. Now they gave like the green light for transnational mining companies to come in. They're building a port in UNESCO heritage sites. So I don't know what's, you know, I don't know how to say it without being rude, but it's completely it's an act of hypocrisy that the same Colombia government is proposing something here, while in the country they're trashing the country, they're trashing the few resources that were kept. I mean, I know this sounds horrible, but it was thanks to conflict.
Thank you for raising this. More questions or comments? Over there.
Thank you very much. I'm Emily Arayo from Uganda. I just wanted to share on the issue of regenerating the catchments for the water. The catchment. Issues to do with wetlands has also come as issues of policy now, because there are gazetted areas where encroachment should not take place. But how strong are our local governments in enforcing this? Who should take it first? Is it the line ministries or the local governments and the communities? So we need more of enforcement of the law in regard to protecting the sources of clean water. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one more there and then we will jump on that side.
Thank you.
Please.
My name is James Ogola. I am from the United States International University here in Africa. And I'm very delighted to hear what Agnes said from Uganda, that there's some fair research that is happening there. I would want to move that we continue to catalyze research so that then those instances of pollution, whether on our fresh water bodies or in the air, are very easily monitored, and then if they are monitored, then the interventions that we're talking about can actually make sense. Without being backed by research, without involvement of higher education institutions, without involvement of computer and high computing power, we will not be able to easily monitor and be able even to tell the trends that will be there in the future if we continue the same way. So I wish to move that we encourage through this session the research and computing power, something that is called high computing, high performance computing, that would help in monitoring as well as showing the trends that will then be used to provide recommendations for interventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over here.
My name is Tarek. I'm the regional representative for West Asia region. I just have, I want to share with you a story of my country. What happens is, there was a garbage actually because we have a war in Yemen, and those cleaners employees, they didn't clean the streets. So actually the garbage had stayed there like for around 6 months. So when the water came, the rain came, it mixed with the garbage and it goes to the fresh water, and that caused a lot of cholera in Yemen, you know, and like around 500,000 has been got this disease. So I'll just to share with you, this is the pollution of fresh water. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take two, three, four. Whoa. Okay, at the back.
My name is Juliet Makoha from Kenya. I would like to recommend that we need to have a lot of research that will enable us to develop more technologies that would promote water filters instead of using chemicals, because even you find now that even the water we are using, it has a lot of chemicals, and if we want to avoid pollution even within the water, we need just to use proper filters, and it is possible. Thank you.
Okay, this side, please. You.
Thank you, Chair. Janice Cox from World Animal Net. Just reading through the resolutions, I am a bit concerned that we're talking now about what we aspire to. We're talking now about, monitoring and research, and yet there are areas that have been very well researched where we actually need to get into the root of the problem and take some definitive action rather than going through the cycle again. And one of these questions is agriculture, and we know it's the single largest user of fresh water on a global basis and a major cause of degradation, surface and groundwater, erosion, chemical runoff, pollution from organic and inorganic waste. And this really needs looking into and taking decisive action by combining both food and farming. We spoke a lot about agroecological solutions, but there are also different ways of feeding populations, eating lower down the food chain, for example. And so really this needs to be considered as a food and farming intervention, a root cause intervention. And I see none of this in the resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. At the back. Over there.
ជំរាបសួរនាងខ្ញុំមកខាងប្រទេសនាងខ្ញុំឈ្មោះចាន់នីមកពីប្រទេសកម្ពុជានាងខ្ញុំចង់និយាយពីបញ្ហានៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាផ្ទាល់ដូចជាការបំពុលទឹកដោយសារតែទំនប់វារីអគ្គិសនីសេសានក្រុង2អញ្ចឹងវាមានការបំពុលទឹកខ្លាំងហើយទាំងបរិស្ថានហើយទាំងបាត់បង់អត្តសញ្ញាណភ្នូរដូនតាជាច្រើននៅក្នុងសហគមន៍របស់នាងខ្ញុំផ្ទាល់
Hello, my name is Chani. I'm the community from Cambodia, the affected community under the Lower Sesan 2 hydropower dam, which is the controversial dam in Cambodia. The pollution is not about the environment, it's not only about the water, it's not about the, but it's everything. It's about, because now the reservoir has been operated, and it submerged our village, and it affected the tradition, the culture of the indigenous peoples over there. So this is the problem that we face today. And the question is that how can the government and junior pay the attention and addressing this, because we are the indigenous people, the culture and the tradition is not can be compensated by cash. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take one more question and then we're going to head back to, okay, you lady.
My name is Lilian Migosi from Kenya Network of Grassroots Women Kenya. I would like to contribute to the discussion. My question is, what is UN doing, UNEA doing regarding conservation of Lake Victoria in regard to pollution, because it's actually dying out, and one of the major contributions is due to pollution. This is because although there are policies and regulation in place to reduce pollution, they are not being implemented by the government due to some influence of high-profile government officials. So there is influence. But if UNEA will come in, it will help. So that's why I'm asking, what are the steps and the mechanisms in place to contribute into conservation of Lake Victoria and also reduction of the pollution of the lake? Because it's very important to us Kenyans. Thank you.
Okay, can you answer this, please, Liz?
Is this on? Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of interest around Lake Victoria. It is a very concerning issue. I personally don't expect a specific lake or water body to come into this resolution, but I can say that UN Environment Program does have a new project on Lake Victoria that it's getting off the ground with all of the riparian states, and I can provide more information to you about that if you grab my card after this session.
Thank you. We're going to head our last round of questions, and so I would like to ask you on what are your concrete recommendations for member states to consider in their deliberations of the draft resolution. I mean, some of them, they have been already raised, okay, regarding the need to keep pushing on this human rights approach, also on trying to working on the language or to avoid this accidental risk that it's already in the resolution, or doing some efforts on key sectors as the agriculture and industry. Can you please share what you think could be your concrete recommendations for the resolution?
Well, when you say concrete, I'm like, let's see how concrete can I be. So, but I'll come to the point that what we need is system change. You know, we can be very concrete about small little things, but finally that's what brings us to. And, you know, the recommendations I have are actually all been red flagged, you know. So I'm thinking, where do we start from? So I'll once again say that, you know, what we're saying, like extractive industries or hydropower projects, you know, we need to talk about that. We need to see how states want to regulate, restrict, limit these kind of projects. Then I wanted to also bring to the, you know, we keep on coming back, the pesticide issue, you know, and which is linked to agriculture, large-scale agricultural practices, you know, and that pesticides not just pollute, you know, rivers or the water bodies, but also contaminates groundwater. And as well as it depletes large-scale, you know, pesticide use means that you need more water for farming, so which means that, you know, we have seen this in India, in Punjab, where for prolonged use of pesticides has depleted groundwater to such extent that in places the ground has shrunk, where there used to be water, you know, reserves, their ground has shrunk, you know, and this is evidence, this has been recorded. So, you know, that's why we need to, you know, look at pesticides, how we control, ban pesticide. And then, you know, also my concern is that this clean water for all is, I hope we're not meaning bottled clean water for all, you know. So, I mean, this is how it is happening in the world if I look around. So privatized, bottled clean water is not the way, like when we talk about false solutions earlier, so this would be a false solution. So we need to keep that in mind. And then also cross-border is a very, very important issue. If we're talking about rivers, and now we are hearing about Lake Victoria, and I'm talking about my rivers, which are from Tibet to, India to Myanmar to Bangladesh. If we don't have, cross-border coherence, how are we going to address issues? And then, again, I'm coming back to the, monster that we have to deal with, which is fossil fuel. All of this is connected to this economy, this dirty economy, which is so dependent on fossil fuel, unless we change that. So whether we're talking about water pollution, whether we're talking about, water pollution, we're talking about all kinds of, environment issues, we need to talk about fossil fuel. I don't see any mention of that here. So, and when we say that we need to change the economy, we need to change the system from fossil fuel dependence. So I would once again like to bring, I would like to say that what we need is a transition, and that transition has to be just and equitable, So we have been saying, APWLD has, been saying, we have talked about it earlier, speakers have talked about it earlier, and this just and equitable transition would mean not only transition from, to sustainable livelihoods, but also including people who are left behind, marginalized people, including women, making them partners in this process and taking inputs from communities and, depending on that. That is my recommendation.
Doctor wants to go.
Okay, I would like to add some points. It is about the laboratories studying pollution are not numerous in Africa, and we really need to have some infrastructure to monitor and to research. And also researchers are missing in the issue in Africa, I would say, in my knowledge. I think in the first step we can try to have already existing laboratories equipment to equip them, to allow them to do some monitoring and to have a qualified person on that. The second thing I would like to mention is to have an adequate framework in the country. Because I think in many countries the regulation is very missing, and we need to update it and to apply it what people decided to do. So I think the regulation, the enforcement of the regulation is very essential in many countries in Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. In addition to what has been said from the participants, I think we should also strengthen the capacity of governments around effective implementation of the legal, policy, technical, and technological capacities. That is, for some governments, they're lacking so much. And so that is why it's very clear in Uganda, participants have shared that the laws and policies are there, but enforcement is so much a challenge. So we just need a government capacity around effective implementation and the policy and legal. But also some governments should be supported to corroborate and share best practices with other governments around issues of collecting data and monitoring plus reporting. That, I think, will so much build on, especially on quality of water. It will boost and to be sure that we have, the statistics to base on. But also issues around I really want to make sure that governments can increase on the investment towards access to safe water and also affordable sanitation facilities, because we really need to ensure that amidst what is going on, what you have said, that communities have access to safe water for drinking. For example, my government in Uganda, it's only 3% of the total budget that goes into WASH. And the last one would be to ensure that UN also, for example, UNEA can also put up, clear international water quality standards that can be adopted by national, organizations. And these guidelines could, I think, so much be the basis for, protecting and restoring fresh water to enhance the quality of water.
Thank you. And so we're talking about technology transfer, capacity building, and finance. No, always three key elements. Liz, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I found this discussion extremely inspirational and very thought-provoking, and I would like to thank you for that. I'd also like to draw attention to the message on my water bottle, because any of you who buy one of these bottles this week will see our message on it, which is, this reusable bottle contains clean drinking water, but we all know that drinking water doesn't come from a bottle. It comes from our lakes and rivers, it comes from our ground. We use that water for drinking, we use it for our food, including agriculture, and we use it for energy. But all of those things can pollute the water. And if we don't take an ecosystem perspective to raise awareness around protecting our lakes and rivers, we will not have a sustainable source of water. That's why this is really at the heart of what we're trying to do. And I hope all of you can take that message. I certainly will take these messages and this inspiration into our discussions this week, and I look forward to a good outcome for the resolutions on water.
So thank you very much. Just the final comments from the audience before we end this session. Marie-Therese? Very quickly, please.
Good morning. I'm Marie-Therese Saif from Human Environmental Association for Development and West Asia Regional Representative for Major Group. My question is, for food companies, water management is a business imperative like never before. And as risks of water scarcity and pollution steadily increase, corporate leaders must evaluate the most effective ways to waterproof their business. What do you expect from Unia 3 to conserve a clean water like a water footprint? Thank you.
Okay. Who wants to take this one? Can you concrete your question? So this is referring on the expected outcomes of UNIA regarding agriculture?
From business companies.
From business companies. There's any reference to that in the resolution, Liz?
Yes, absolutely. Private sector and businesses have a huge role to play in the solutions as well for water management. This weekend there is a Science Policy and Business Innovation Forum, which I'm sure you all are welcome to attend. And we have a session there on wastewater, as well as a session on water quality monitoring. And all of them include the private sector, as well as civil society groups, Earth observations, perspectives, local government. So those sessions this weekend might be very interesting for you to attend.
Okay, and our last question, okay, please, you.
Thank you very much. This was very interesting. It's not a question, it's more a remark. My name is Marit Verhoef-Cohen, and I'm from Optimist International and Women for Water Partnership. I was very pleased that data were mentioned, and I think that it counts for all of you. But could you please make it sex disaggregated data so that we actually know not only quantitative but also qualitative data, what women think and what women, because normally the data we get is all the data that men sort of fill out, and we have no idea what the input of the woman is. So please make it sex disaggregated data. That will be very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you for this remark. It's well noted. So I think we just come up to the end of this session. Thank you to the panelists for your contributions, also for you, the audience, for your contributions, and we keep our discussions within the corridors. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Susanna, for facilitating. Let's give a clap for Susanna also.
She's great facilitator, and then thank you for the engaging discussion. It's a good start in the morning. So we're going to move again to the next session, which is going to be on session 9A, 9B. This time we're going to actually split the group, split the participants. We're going to have a parallel discussion, One group will stay here, which is going to speak on chemical and waste, And then another group, which is going to speak on militarism, noise, and other pollution, will move to conference room 2. So I just want to have a feel in the room. Who wants to go to the chemical and waste? Raise your hand. Yay! Okay. Chemical and waste, stay here. And then also for the militarism, noise, and other pollution, raise your hand, please. Okay, great. So move to, right now, immediately move to conference room 2. As I said earlier, please make sure that you sit in the front row because it's a huge, bigger room than this one. And then we will need to go back. We will do this for 2 hours. Now it's 11:03, so we're going to have it until 1 p.m. and then we're going to have lunch. Thank you so much. No, we don't have any other room. We only have like several, I think, sitting in the militarism, noise, and other pollution. We would like to ask if people wants to probably fill in the room also, the other session. It will be good. All right. Thank you.
If the clicker doesn't work, yes, the clicker is working. Oh, if the clicker doesn't work, I'll support from there. Okay, thank you. President Yes, that's true. Kuna mtu huko anaitwa
have... Hi. Good morning, everyone. Please have your seats. Welcome to the session 9A. We are addressing the chemicals and waste. Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats. We are about to start our session. This is a very important session on chemicals and waste. So if you would like to understand the UNIA 3, everything will be said in the session, because this session is linked to all other sessions, whether water, air, marine. So everything in the session, so a 2-hour session can give you a full idea about UNIA 3. And we have a very esteemed panel from various organizations, international organizations, and grassroots organizations, and also governments. So without further ado, I will UNIA 3. Everything will be said in the session, because this session is linked to all other sessions, whether water, air, marine. So everything in the session, so a 2-hour session can give you a full idea about UNIA 3. And we have a very esteemed panel from various organizations, international organizations, and grassroots organizations, and also governments. So without further ado, I will just ask the panel just to briefly introduce themselves to yourself, just the main organization and one sentence about the experience.
Good morning.